So this is meeting number 4. What I'd like to do today is continue with Hasidic thought and explain how Hasidic stories can be the basis of Hasidic thought. And let me explain. I just want to make sure, There are two episodes in Hasidic stories. You have the early Hasidic stories, as I said, which is stories that the tzaddikim, the rabbis, would tell their Hasidim. And in these stories, the stories usually have something that, which to take away from the story, something to learn. There's always something in the story to learn. That's in the early stories of Hasidut. The later stories became stories of all these wondrous and miraculous things that they're. But the early stories were all this idea to make people. And we see this in all Hasidic stories. In the first story, it's exactly like that. I'll tell you the story. I could read it, but I could just tell it. The first story is called "The Treasure Which Is Under the Bridge." The treasure. Trezor.
I think I know the story.
Okay, it's a famous game.
Yeah.
No, traduce. The treasure which is under the bridge.
Povestea este despre comoara de sub pod. Este o poveste celebră.
So this story actually is a story that predates Rabbi Nahman. It's found already in the stories of the city of Krakow. And Rabbi Nahman tells the story as a bridge in Vienna, but the original story was probably the Charles Bridge in Prague.
Deci este această poveste pe care Rabbi Nahman o plasează. Deci sunt 3 poduri unde s-ar putea să se fi petrecut povestea. Unul este în Cracovia, altul este în Viena și de fapt și de drept povestea originală se pare că s-a întâmplat sub podul lui Carol din Praga.
Yeah. So let me see if I can find it also. So the first story, a moment. See if I can find it. It's not it. Oh, wait. Mistake. Into YouTube. Okay. Here it is. Okay. There are lots of, you'll find a lot of these stories on YouTube. Not all of them are done that well because most of the time it's just somebody telling the story. A few of them were done very well because they were produced by an Israeli producer by the name of Yehuda Bar, who worked in Israeli film for many years, and towards the end of his life, he became more religious, more observant, and he decided to make movies out of Rabbi Nahman's stories, and he made one long movie, which was story after story after story, and this is one of them. Out of the 3 movies, 2 of them I have traducția in Romanian, but the first one I do not, but it's only 5 minutes. That's the story. So it's called The Treasure Under the Bridge.
Deci povestea este despre comoara de sub pod. Sunt 3 povești ale Rabbi Nahman, ecranizate de înțeleptul cineast din Israel. Pentru cele 2, a doua și a treia, de fapt, există traducere în limba română, dar pentru prima nu, așa că ne va spune povestea înainte.
Yes. So basically the story is that there is a very poor Jew living in Krakow. That's the original story. And he's trying to figure out what to do because he lost his job and he has no money and he doesn't know exactly how he's going to save his family.
Este vorba despre un evreu sărac care locuia în Cracovia și care era într-o situație foarte dificilă, își pierduse locul de muncă, nu mai avea cum să-și întrețină familia și se întreba ce soluție ar putea găsi ca să iasă din acest necaz.
So one day he has a dream that there is a treasure underneath the bridge in, well, the original was Prague, but this one is in Vienna.
Și într-o noapte are un vis cum că ar exista o comoară sub un pod din Praga, cum zice povestea originală, sau, în acest caz, sub un pod din Viena.
So he has the dream, but he doesn't take it so serious.
El visează, are acest vis, numai că nu ia foarte tare serios.
But the next night he has the same dream all over again.
Și noaptea următoare are același vis, exact la fel.
And then he has it a third time.
Și a treia oară are același vis, la fel.
And he said, obviously, I have to find out what's under that bridge.
Și bineînțeles că în cele din urmă spune, trebuie să găsesc până la urmă ce e acolo sub pod, trebuie să merg până acolo.
Maybe this is a sign.
Poate un semn.
So he decides, he told his wife he's going to leave for a couple of days.
Și anunță soția că va pleca pentru câteva zile.
And again, in the original story, he goes to the Charles Bridge in Prague, the one that connects from the palace to the rest of the city.
În povestea originală merge la Praga, la podul Carol din Praga, care conectează palatul, leagă palatul de restul orașului.
But in this one, it's Vienna.
Aici merge în Viena.
And he goes to the bridge and he starts looking around under the bridge.
Și merge până la pod și începe să se uite peste pod.
And he doesn't know where to look. He's on one side of the river, the other side of the river, looking under the bridge, and he can't find anything.
Nu prea știe ce exact trebuie să caute. De o parte a râului se uită la un picior al podului, se uită la celălalt picior al podului, pe cealaltă parte a râului, dar nu găsește nimic și se tot întreabă ce ar trebui să caute.
Now, on top of the bridge, there is a soldier who's in charge of checking people who cross the bridge. And eventually he sees this man snooping around under the bridge, and he says to him, what are you doing?
Și la un moment dat, soldatul care era pus să păzească podul, tot îl vede pe bărbatul ăsta care umblă încolo și încoace pe sub pod pe la picioarele podului și la un moment dat îl urmează și îl întrebe ce face.
So the man says, I'm looking for somebody.
Și bărbatul spune, caut ceva.
He says, well, what are you looking for?
Dar ce cauți?
He said, you're not going to believe it.
Nu o să crezi ce caut.
He says, try me or else I'm going to get you out of here.
Soldatul spune, ia mă, încearcă să-mi spui totuși pentru că altfel te gonesc de aici.
So he tells him about the dream that he had,
Și povestește visul pe care tocmai l-a avut.
about the treasure underneath the
Despre
bridge.
comoara de sub pod.
And the soldier looks at me and he starts laughing.
Soldatul se uită la el și începe să râde.
He said, you came all the way here to look for treasure under this bridge? I've been here for the last half a year.
Și spune, ai venit atâta drum ca să cauți comoara de sub pod, eu am fost aici jumătate de an, sunt aici de jumătate de an.
He says, and you must be really naive to believe in dreams.
Și ești cu siguranță foarte naiv să crezi în vise.
Says, because I had a dream just last night that there's some Jew who lives in Krakow, and in his kitchen, there's a treasure underneath the oven.
Pe eu am avut acest vis noaptea trecută, cum că există un evreu în Cracovia care are o comoară sub cuptor.
Now you think I'm going to go to Krakow and look in every oven in every Jew's house to see who has the treasure?
Spune, crezi că acum o să mă duc în Cracovia și o să intru în fiecare casă evreiască și să caut sub pod, sub sobă să văd dacă există o comoară?
So he says, okay, so get out of here.
Îi spune, haide, e momentul să pleci de aici.
So he hears that and he runs back home and he looks into the oven and he finds the treasure.
Și bărbatul aude lucrul ăsta, fuge repede acasă, caută sub sobă și găsește comoară.
And the moral of the story is that we look our whole lives for the treasure, but sometimes it's within us.
Și morala poveștii este că toată viața căutăm o comoară și de cele mai multe ori comoara e în noi.
Okay.
So what's the name of the director?
Yehuda Barkan.
Yehuda
Yehuda Barkan. He passed away a few years ago. Okay.
aceeași poveste.
Quick, I have to make sure they can see it on the, I made a mistake. They have to be able to see it. Oh, look, the one, somebody wants to come in. In order for them to see it, I have to do share screen and sound. I have to hear the sound too. Hello, Liliana, can you see the video?
Yes, I see.
Tell me if you can hear it also. Yes?
No,
You cannot hear it?
I didn't. No,
Can't hear it.
I'm hearing you, but not the film.
One second, let's do it again. I should say that somewhere. You hear it?
No, not even now. No.
Oh, they have what's called share sound, and I don't see it. It disappeared. Should be share sound somewhere. Usually when I open this up, it says share sound, but it doesn't.
It is the new laptop. No?
Oh, here, share sound. They moved it. Okay.
Under
Yes,
this bridge.
Okay.
Jew only has dreams. Now, listen to this. I
I'm
also had
here.
a dream, and I also saw a treasure. It was buried inside a wooden cabin under the stove. The cabin was in the mountains, in the middle of a green field, surrounded by a fence. It had a white chimney, and there were stones all over the roof.
What a silly dream you had, huh?
Just like your foolish dream.
You're right. What foolishness. What's in a dream?
It's time that you are heading home.
Yes, sir. Officer. You are absolutely right. You won't see me around here again.
תחשוב טוב, יהיה טוב, אלוקים אוהב אותך. תחשוב טוב, יהיה טוב, תאמין בעצמך. תחשוב טוב, יהיה טוב, אלוקים אוהב אותך. תחשוב טוב, יהיה טוב, תאמין בעצמך. תחשוב טוב, יהיה טוב, אלוקים אוהב אותך. תחשוב טוב, תהיה טוב, תאמין לעצמך, תחשוב שתהיה טוב, אלוקים אוהב אותך.
Amazing. The treasure was with me all the time. I didn't even know it. We all have a treasure within us. But sometimes we have to set out on a very long journey to find the person who can help us discover it within ourselves.
Wonderful.
Andreea locuiește într-o casă mică cu bunicul ei.
Okay, that was number one. Number two, I'm not going to show. First, I want to read it, but here it is. Okay, I'll leave it here for a moment. Okay, what I want to do. So, as you see, this story is a very old story, but for Rabbi Nahman, in the original story of the story, this guy whose name is Isaac, he goes back to Krakow, and after he finds this treasure, he actually builds a synagogue. And the synagogue is the Isaac synagogue in Krakow today. They tell the story. The Isaac synagogue, which is in Kazimierz. So, but for Nachman, that's not important. What's important is the idea that the story, that the treasure is at home. So for him, that's the important part of the story. But this is a story where there's one message in the story. I'll show you another story too, where there's also one message, but the message is more complicated. But there's one message. And then I'll show you another story where there are multiple messages. And that's what Rabbi Nahman does sometimes. As his stories develop, they become much more complicated and many layers within the story. How do you say layers? Stratum. Yes, stratum in the stories. Okay, so let me just go to one moment. Here. Right here. Okay, the story is here it is. Humble King? No, not this one. I'm sorry. Story is yes. This is it? This is it. Okay. Okay, would somebody like to read the story? You want to read?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go. You can see it. Yeah, that's there you go. Very good. Oh, somebody wants to enter. Okay, I have to do share. A moment, I have to do share. Somebody just entered, right? Enough. Okay. I think somebody else just entered, didn't know? I don't understand what happened. There was somebody else that just entered, but I don't see them. Well, there are 3 participants. Oh, you just don't see them. Oh, they're there. Oh, no. Well, I'm the third. Okay. The waiting room message. What's the message? Is there somebody in the waiting room? No, maybe. Here, wait a minute. Okay. Very good. Okay, so this story is One moment. This story is called, what's happened? I can't get rid of this. I can't get away. How do you take it away? I don't know. Okay. So this is Increder in Diminizeu. Yes.
A fost odată un rege care și-a spus, cine poate avea oare mai puține griji decât am eu? Tot ce am e bun și sunt rege și conducător. A plecat să cerceteze. Ieșea prin oraș noaptea, stând în spatele caselor, ascultând, încercând să afle ce spun oamenii. A auzit grijile tuturor și ce nu merge bine în treburile lor. Într-una din case a auzit că un om are probleme și încearcă să obțină o audiență la rege. În felul acesta a auzit plângerile tuturor. Apoi a zărit o casă foarte joasă, cufundată în pământ, încât ferestrele erau la același nivel cu solul. Acoperișul era dărâmat și căzut. Înăuntru era un om care cânta la vioară, dar regele trebuia să asculte foarte atent ca să ascundă sunetul. Omul era foarte fericit. Avea o farfurie și o băutură în față, vin și mai multă mâncare în jurul lui. Părea foarte vesel, plin de bucurie, fără nicio grijă. Regele?
Yes, so here we have a king who has everything, but the king wants to know if there is somebody in the kingdom who is happy with their life just like he is. And he goes to different casas and he listens and he hears people's problems, and everybody has problems. And finally he comes to this one house, yes, where there's a man who's singing and happy and having dinner and dancing around. And he's wondering, how can it be that this simple person in a house that's coming apart is so happy? Okay, that's where you are, right?
Yeah, when he comes inside.
Okay. This man is playing the fiddle. Okay.
Regele a intrat înăuntru și l-a întrebat cum se descurcă. Omul a răspuns, regele a văzut mâncarea și vinul și bucuria de pe fața omului. Acesta i-a oferit niște vin și a închinat paharul în numele regelui. Cu drag, regele a băut și el. Apoi, regele s-a așezat să doarmă. A realizat că era complet fericit, fără niciun fel de griji. Dimineața, regele s-a sculat și gazda sa l-a însoțit. De unde ai toate astea? L-a întrebat regele. Sunt meșter, răspunse omul. Pot să repar orice este stricat. Nu pot să construiesc nimic, dar pot să repar totul. Mă scol dimineața și plec să lucrez. Când am 5 sau 6 guldeni, îmi cumpăr mâncare și de băut.
This is an interesting thing. He is a fixer. He can fix anything, but he can't make anything.
Yeah.
Which is a very strange thing, because if you can fix a car, you would think that. But he can fix anything, he cannot make anything. And when he has 5 golden coins, that's enough for him, and then he buys his dinner. Yes.
Când regele a auzit asta, s-a gândit. O să-l ruinez. S-a întors acasă și a emis un decret că dacă cineva are un obiect stricat, nu are voie să-l dea la reparat. Trebuie ori să-l repare el însuși, ori să cumpere unul nou. În dimineața aceea, meșterul a plecat să caute de lucru. I s-a spus despre decretul regelui, veste foarte rea pentru el, dar omul avea credință în Dumnezeu. A mers mai departe și a văzut un om bogat care tăia lemn. De ce tai lemne tu însuți? L-a întrebat meșterul. Nu este sub demnitatea ta? Am căutat pe cineva să taie lemnele astea, a răspuns acesta, dar nu am găsit pe nimeni, așa că sunt nevoit să le tai eu, nu am altă soluție. Lasă-mă pe mine, spuse meșterul, le voi tăia eu pentru tine. A tăiat lemnele, iar bogătașul i-a dat un gulden. Și-a dat seama că ăsta e un mijloc bun de a câștiga bani, așa că au căutat de lucru ca tăietor de lemne și în alte părți. Și a lucrat până când a câștigat 6 guldeni. A luat banii și și-a cumpărat de mâncare. Masa a fost un festin și meșterul a fost foarte fericit.
So he looks for a new job because he's not allowed to fix anything. So he starts cleaning out stables of animals.
He cut the wood.
Oh, this is the wood one now?
Yeah. Yeah, it was the wood one.
Oh, this one's the cutting wood, okay. So, yes, yeah, okay, so he's cutting wood. So he cuts wood, and now that he cuts the wood, then he sees that this aristocrat is cutting wood. He says, no, let me do it. You'll just pay me. And he pays, and he has money, and he makes, and it says, and the meal was a meal. Okay. Now the king is gonna pay him another visit. Oops. Jumped.
Regele a citit din nou noaptea aceea și a urmărit să vadă ce se întâmpla cu meșterul. L-a văzut stând la masă, foarte bucuros. Regele a intrat în casă și totul a fost la fel ca seara precedentă. Dimineața, meșterul s-a sculat să-l conducă pe rege. De unde ai avut mâncarea? L-a întrebat regele. Cum ai câștigat banii necesari? Slujba mea obișnuită e să repar diverse lucruri, dar regele a emis un decret care interzice ca orice obiect să fie reparat de către altcineva decât proprietarul, așa că am tăiat lemne până am câștigat suma necesară pentru ce îmi trebuie. După ce a plecat, regele a emis un nou decret care interzicea angajarea de tăietori de lemne. Ok.
Yes.
Când meșterul a auzit asta, a fost supărat din moment ce nu avea bani, dar totuși avea credință în Dumnezeu. S-a plimbat o vreme până a văzut un om care își curăța grajdul.
So he has trust in God that he will always have enough no matter what happens. Yes, okay.
Grajdul, a întrebat el. Am căutat peste tot, a răspuns omul, dar nu am găsit pe nimeni care să curățe pentru mine. Prin urmare, trebuie să curăț eu. Lasă-mă pe mine, a spus meșterul, îți voi curăța eu pentru tine. Când a terminat, omul i-a dat 2 guldeni. A mai curățat încă vreo câteva grajduri și a câștigat cei 6 guldeni de care avea nevoie. Apoi a cumpărat de mâncare și s-a dus acasă. Masa a fost un festiv și meșterul a fost foarte fericit. The second one.
Right. So, yeah, Regel.
Regele s-a dus din nou să vadă ce se întâmplă și din nou l-a văzut foarte fericit. A intrat în casă, a petrecut noaptea acolo și dimineața l-a întrebat pe meșter de unde a avut banii, iar acesta i-a povestit ce s-a întâmplat. Apoi, regele a emis un decret care interzice angajarea de grăjdari pentru a curăța ambare și grajduri.
Right, so nobody should be able to chop wood. Yes.
To clean stables.
Oh, you're already at the cleaning the stables. Okay.
Meșterul a plecat să curețe grajduri și a aflat de noul decret al regelui. Neavând încotro, s-a dus la oficiul de recrutare și s-a înrolat în garda națională. Unii soldați sunt recrutați, dar alții se oferă voluntar, pentru plată. Meșterul s-a angajat ca soldat și a stabilit cu ofițerul la conducere că e vorba doar de o slujbă temporară și că va fi plătit în fiecare dimineață. Imediat și-a pus uniforma și-a luat sabia. Seara și-a scos uniforma și cu leaca s-a dus să-și cumpere de mâncare. Masa a fost un festiv și meșterul a fost foarte fericit. Regele s-a dus din nou să vadă ce se întâmplă și din nou a văzut că toată mâncarea e pe masă și el e foarte fericit. A intrat în casă și a rămas peste noapte ca înainte. Apoi, regele l-a întrebat cum se mai descurcă și meșterul i-a povestit tot. Regele l-a anunțat pe ofițer să nu plătească pe nimeni care este angajat în armată în aceeași dimineață. Când meșterul s-a prezentat la datorie și a cerut leaca pentru ziua respectivă. Când a văzut că nu va fi plătit, i-a spus ofițerului: aveam o înțelegere să mă plătești în fiecare zi. Într-adevăr, răspuns ofițerul, dar regele a decretat ca nimeni să nu fie plătit astăzi. Meșterul s-a rugat și a implorat, dar fără succes. Te voi plăti mâine pentru 2 zile, îi spuse ofițerul, dar astăzi este imposibil.
Right. So in other words, he's saying that this man, I want you to kill him because he definitely deserves the death. What? Where are you?
He hired himself as a soldier.
Yes.
And then
Oh, he said he doesn't have the money for today.
for the day. Yes.
Okay.
And now the guy asks and begs, and he said, and the officer promised him that he will pay him next day.
Yes. Okay.
I go further.
Yes.
Meșterul născoci un plan.
We're towards the end.
Scoase lama sabiei și o înlocui cu una de lemn. No. Here.
Okay.
Meșterul născoci un plan. Scoase lamea sabiei și o înlocui cu una de lemn, așa încât să nu vadă diferența. Apoi a amanetat lama și și-a cumpărat mâncarea obișnuită. Masa a fost un festiv. Regele s-a întors din nou și l-a văzut pe meșter complet fericit. A intrat să-l viziteze și a rămas peste noapte. Când l-a întrebat cum o mai duce, meșterul i-a povestit tot ce s-a întâmplat, cum a înlocuit lama sabiei cu una de lemn, cum a amanetat-o ca să-și poată cumpăra de mâncare. Când îmi voi primi leafa astăzi, a încheiat el, voi răscumpăra lama și voi repara sabia la loc. Nimeni nu-și va da seama. Pot să repar orice. Regele nu va avea nimic de pierdut. Regele s-a întors la palat, l-a chemat pe ofițer și i-a spus: am un criminal care a fost osândit la moarte. Cheamă-l pe meșterul pe care l-ai angajat ca mercenar și ordonă-i să taie capul criminalului. Ofițerul l-a chemat pe meșter. Regele a ordonat ca toți ofițerii să fie prezenți, să vadă o glumă. Le-a spus că unul dintre soldații săi și-a înlocuit lama sabiei cu una de lemn. Când meșterul a venit în fața regelui, a căzut în genunchi și a pledat: Maestate, de ce m-ai chemat pe mine? Ca să decapitezi pe criminal, i-a răspuns regele. Dar eu nu am omorât pe nimeni, a spus el. Te rog, găsește-mi altcineva să facă asta. Tocmai de aceea ți-am ordonat ție să o faci, a replicat regele. Este cazul lui într-adevăr foarte clar? A întrebat meșterul. Poate nu este așa limpede, poate nu merită să moară. Nu am omorât niciodată pe nimeni, cum să omor acum pe cineva care poate nici nu merită să moară? Nu este niciun dubiu că merită să moară, a răspuns regele. Verdictul este unanim, iar tu trebuie să fii cel care îl va duce la îndeplinire. Meșterul a văzut că nu poate să schimbe părerea regelui și a ridicat privirile la cer și a spus: Doamne preaputernic, nu am omorât pe nimeni în viața mea. Dacă omul ăsta nu merită să moară, fie ca lama sabiei mele să se transforme în lemn. Și acestea fiind spuse, și-a scos sabia și toată lumea a văzut că lama era o bucată de lemn. Toți cei prezenți au râs pe săturate, regele a văzut ce om bun era meșterul și l-a lăsat să plece acasă în pace.
So let's see if we can figure this out. So the whole time the king was really playing with him. And in the end, the king sees that he's just a good person, and he wants to see how he would react in the situation. Now let's go over the story. You have the king, and you have the fixer. The name of the story is Trust in God. Since the name of the story is Trust in God, the goal of the story seems to be, what does it seem to be the goal of the story or the meaning of the story?
To check the trust in God.
Okay, and so who is the one who's checking to see if somebody has trust in God? Who has the trust in God in the story? The fixer, yes. And so it sounds like the king who is playing with the fixer is sort of like God seeing if this person, almost like in book of Job, if we try him, if he'll see. Yes. Now, so let's just see what else is happening in the story. Again, fixer is a very unusual thing. He can fix things, but he cannot make it. Now, in the first case, what does he fix? He fixes up. And that doesn't work, so then he goes to he cuts forth. Find somebody that wants to. And I know that everything is stable. In a movie, I think for some reason, instead of being stable, they made it gardening. I don't know why, but that's what it is. And then he becomes soldier. Mercenary soldier, paid by the day. Okay, these are the 4 different occupations he has. The fixer, which is his actual occupation, cutting wood, cleaning stables, and the daily soldier. All different things. And then what happens at the end of the story? At the end of the story, the king wants to test him. And of course, he says nobody will be paid that day. And so what he does is he takes his sword and he pawns off the blade of the sword, gets some money, and he says, I can fix anything. I'll buy it back tomorrow and I'll put it back. And then the king asks him that day to come down and says, there's a man, it's the death penalty, and I thought you should be the one to do the death penalty. He says, are you sure that this person is deserving? He says, 100%. He says, I've never killed anybody before. He says, but you have to. So he says, okay, Lord of the universe, if this man is innocent, may my blade turn into wood. And he opens it up and the blade is wood and everybody laughs because the king knew already be wood. And he sends him home. That's the story. So the first part of the story is obvious. There's 2 parts to Nahman's stories. There's the obvious, which is on the outside, and then there's the not obvious, which is on the inside. So the obvious is that this is trusting in God. In Hebrew, we differentiate between faith and trust. In Hebrew, it's called emunah and bitachon. I think it's Romanian, it's credința and credere. Right? So there's a difference. A person can have a belief in God, but to believe that God will help me if I do the right thing, that's almost a different level. So that's definitely an idea here. And it's an idea in Hasidic thought too, and in general in Jewish thought. But what's also happening here is a second story, because let's look for a moment what's happening in the story. The fixer fixes objects. Objects are inanimate, right? Then wood is plants. Then the stables where we have animals. And the soldier is a person. If you remember in Aristotelian philosophy, which the nature has 4 parts. It's called minerals, and plants. It actually goes up instead of down, and animals, and man. Right? There are 4 parts of nature according to Aristotle, and this was the belief all through the Middle Ages. In Jewish philosophy, in Christian philosophy, in Muslim philosophy, that the world has 4 levels. So even the Kabbalists thought this way. They saw it as a truism in nature. It actually goes up.
Yeah.
I wrote it down, and it actually goes up. The difference between a mineral and a plant is that a plant can grow, and a mineral cannot. A rock is a rock. The difference between a plant and an animal is that a plant can grow, an animal can move. Why can an animal move? Because it has a soul, an anima. And that's why it's called an animal. Because things can only move by themselves if they have a soul. If they don't have a soul, then something with a soul can move. I can move a stone. I can move a plant. Okay? I can move even an animal. And the difference between animals and a man, or mankind, is speech. The logos, the ability to speak, which is the intelligence. So those are the 4 levels, according to Aristotle, and Nahman also believes in the 4 levels, because, as I said, all the way into the 19th century, people saw this as just a truism about life. Now, once we see that, The question is, what else is going on in this? To understand what else is going on in this story, you have to understand that Nachman also is a Kabbalist, just like all the Hasidim, all the Hasidic rabbis, not necessarily the Hasidim themselves, the rabbis. The Hasidic movement is very, the leaders are versed in the Kabbalah of the Middle Ages, but also in the Kabbalah of Isaac from the 16th century. In Isaac Luria's Kabbalah, the goal of the universe, God creates a universe which is incomplete. If you remember in Genesis chapter 1, exactly the end of chapter 1, I think in our Bibles it's the beginning of chapter 2. It says, and God finished the heavens and the earth and all of his works. And he finished it on the seventh day, and on the seventh day he rested. And he blessed the seventh day and called it holy, because on that day God stopped all his work, everything that he had created to do. La'asot, to do. So the commentaries, the Jewish commentaries say, what does it mean everything that God created to do? Because God created a universe incomplete, because the human being has to complete it. If God created a complete universe, there would be no point to have human beings. What would they do? Nothing. So, there is an expression in English, they say that guests, how do you say guest?
Yes.
A guest.
A guest. One guest.
Yeah. So guests are like fish. After 3 days, they start to smell. Because they're in their house, they're not doing anything, they're just eating. So a good guest, they say, maybe I can wash the dishes, maybe I can sit on my bed and clean up a little bit, right? Because you want to feel like you're doing something. So the Zohar says, when God created the universe, he didn't want human beings to eat the bread of shame. Eating the bread of shame means you didn't earn it. It is within the human psyche that we want to feel that we accomplished something. And after we accomplish something, we feel better about ourselves. It says in the Psalms, in the Psalms of David, Yegia kapecha ki tochel, if you eat the toil, the labor of your hands, then you are praiseworthy and happy. It's good for you and it makes you happy. So when a person works and they succeed, they feel good about themselves. It's just human nature. That's what God wants. God wants the human being to complete the universe. Now, God could have completed the universe. I always say it's like, let's say a parent takes a child to the supermarket. The parent has 2 bags. So the little child who's 5 years old said, can I help? Now they can't carry the bag, they're too small. So you give them a little bit of a confiture bottle, can, and you give it to them. And then you say, oh, thank you for helping me. You didn't need it, but they feel good about it. So God creates a universe which is incomplete, so human beings feel that they have something. So by definition, then, the human being is the fixer. Because we are here to fix the world. If you remember the story in Genesis, God puts Adam and Eve in the garden. It says to work the garden and to guard it. It says to work the garden, chapter 3, to work it and guard it. What work did they have to do? What guarding did they have to do? But that's what it says. Something they had to do in the garden. The garden represents the microcosm of our universe. According to Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, who was a Kabbalist in Italy in the 18th century. And the idea of working and guarding the garden means that even at that point, God's universe, before it's blemished, there's still what to do. So Adam and Eve are there to do something and to complete the universe. However, instead of doing what they have to do and complete the universe, they make a mistake and they eat from the tree that they're not allowed to eat, and then that makes things worse. But the point is that the human being is there to work, to do something in order to complete it. So the human being is called the fixer. And as you know, mankind can make things always worse. I've always said You know, in politicians, the secret word is always change. Everybody wants change, and we always forget it could be worse. So every time you think that things can't be worse, somebody comes up with something and shows us that it can.
Yeah.
So you have here a situation. So you have a fixer. So once the fixer is already a fixer, the king wants to see how. I just one thing. And the fixer has to fix everything in nature. Inanimate objects, minerals, and plants, and animals, and even human beings. So right, he's going from one to another. Now, what's interesting about this is, okay, you fix minerals by if they're broken, you put them back together. I got that. Cutting wood, which means using wood, for something that wood could actually benefit also humans. All wood benefit humans. You clean the stables, and then the animals, of course, are surviving better. Of course, there are stables, some of them will be for human consumption, but you're giving them at least good conditions that is going to have an effect on you too. But what's the soldier? Where does that one come in? Why is the human being a soldier? Of all things, a human being, they could be a doctor, they could be a lawyer. What's strange about this soldier? What is strange about this soldier? He is
Guardian. He has to guard to the king.
guard.
Yes.
Well, he's working in his job somewhere. But what is more unusual about this soldier? That's not unusual. There are a lot of mercenaries. Who has to be killed?
Yeah.
No, it's not a soldier. It's supposedly a criminal. But what's in again? But what happens in the end with this soldier?
He loses his job.
I know.
And why he lost his job?
Right? Why? No, he lost his. Wait a second. He did not lose his job. He just didn't get paid that day.
Yes.
He did not lose his job. Well, again, what's unusual about this soldier?
He's looking for something always.
No.
He refuses to kill.
This is a soldier who refuses to kill. It's sort of like in the Isaiah chapter 2. They will beat their swords into nation shall not make war against nation, nor shall they learn war anymore. Nation shall not raise sword against nation, nor shall they learn war anymore. In other words, the goal of human beings is to stop killing. He is a soldier who refuses to kill. This is part of because for Nahman, the way to fix mankind at large is to take away the desire to kill. Because since Cain and Abel, you have first fratricide, where one brother kills the other brother, and human history, there's not a day that doesn't go by where there's not a war. And if it's not a war, then it's a murder, it's a rape, it's a theft. People have to have this decadent side to them. And for Nahman, then the final, on the natural level, the final repair of mankind is when they lay down their arms. Yeah. That doesn't mean that he doesn't believe in more than that. But as far as the natural world goes, I said 4 levels of the natural world, that's what's supposed to happen in the natural world. Once you transcend the natural world, then there's also faith and trust. But you have to get to that point before you can get to that. So in my opinion, there are 2 things going on in this. There is the higher level, faith and trust, which is a very high level. But there's in the natural world, what has to happen, that human beings have to take responsibility for the objects, for the plants, for the animals, and also for themselves. Right. That for the other person is the exact opposite of what Cain said about Abel. He said, am I my brother's keeper? And the answer is yes. Maybe not at every moment, but in general, you have to feel the responsibility. Yes. So as I say, there are two things going. That's what I wanted to show in the story. Okay, now we can watch the story. Yes, yes, yes. Now we can watch. Okay, you ready? We will now see the story.
Este incredibil unde s-a ajuns cu acest.
The Almighty will provide for all my needs.
Can you hear it, Ileana? You hear it? They're not talking, but there's.
A distinguished nobleman like you should be.
Can you hear it?
In a week, you'll feel better. In 2 weeks, you'll look better. In a month, you'll have a toned body.
Trebuie să ne faceți un semn dacă auziți. Ok, It's okay.
Once upon a time, there was a rich and powerful king who had everything a person could want. On the outside, at least, he's.
Forgot you can do here subtitles.
Nu reușeam să-mi deschid microfonul.
Wait.
Yes. I hear.
Is it where the other languages? It should be, yes, no, it's not an option. Subtitles should be, okay, I had it working in other languages, so I don't know what happened here. But where is it? Oh, it's in Hebrew and in English.
In subtitles, you have auto translate.
Auto-generate, that's not here. I don't know why it's not here. Oh, here, auto-translate, there it is. And I remembered seeing it.
Just press R and you get the meaning. Just press R on the keyboard.
Just get down there somehow. Wait. All these things are so difficult. Where did it just go? I can't find it. Okay, subtitles.
Auto translate.
Yes, but how do I get down there?
There, little lower. Lower.
Okay, let's try it. I don't know why the Hebrew's there though, but.
Seemed to have everything, but on the inside, he felt empty.
Is there anyone in the world with less troubles than I do? I'm rich, I'm famous. No one can be happier than I am.
Just to be sure that no one had fewer worries than he had, the king decided to investigate.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Will you take my crown, please?
The king decided to disguise himself as a simple beggar so that no one would recognize him. The king strolled around at night through the villages of his kingdom, standing by the windows of houses to listen to what people were saying.
What will be with my family? What will be with my family? I have no work. I don't have money to bring a doctor for my wife. How will I marry off my daughters? Oh, Ribono Shel Olam, have mercy on us. What will be with my daughters? Ribono Shel Olam, please help us, please help us.
גדולה להיות בשמחה, להיות בשמחה תמיד. מצווה גדולה להיות בשמחה, להיות בשמחה תמיד. איי איי, מצווה גדולה להיות בשמחה, מצווה גדולה להיות בשמחה, להיות בשמחה תמיד. איי איי איי, לה 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 לה, איי 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 איי. Yes? Who is it?
Nobody.
Nobody. Even a nobody is somebody in the eyes of God. He's a son of a king. Oh, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello,
Honored
friend.
guest.
Hello, hello.
Please come in. Will you have a seat, please? Please. Welcome. Welcome.
Yes, thank you,
Please,
my friend.
welcome. Share with me all the good fortune.
Thank you, my friend.
Please share with me all the food.
Yes, very nice. Tell me, how do you get along in life?
Thank God I have faith in God. And He provides me with all my needs. Thank God day by day. Let's have a drink. To the long life of the king.
To the king, yeah. To the king. Oh, good morning, my friend.
Good morning, my dear friend. I'm preparing a delicious breakfast for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, my friend. Oop, oop, oop. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh. Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh. Tell me, last night your dinner was fit for a king. How do you make your living?
I repair things. I don't know how to make things, but I know how to fix them. I leave my home in the morning, going around fixing whatever people ask me to fix.
By the way, this is the point. Why does he say I can fix things, but I can't create anything? Because only God can create. Man fixes. That's the idea. I forgot to say that.
When I've made 5 or 6 golden coins, I stop working and buy the food and drink I need for the rest of the day.
Don't you worry, you won't have food for the rest of the week.
Why should I worry? I know that God will take care of all my needs.
I will take his profession away. Then we shall see how happy he is. Let it be known that from now on, people must fix everything by themselves.
my king.
Is it clear?
Yes, my king.
Okay.
Your crown, my king.
Yes, my crown, please. Yes.
When the fixer went looking for work that day, everyone informed him that the king had issued a proclamation making it against the law to hire people to fix things.
Good day, sir.
Oh, good day.
I'm a fixer. Perhaps I can fix the bookcase for you.
Didn't you hear? The king has declared that it's forbidden to hire workers today.
God will provide for all my needs.
Rabbi Nahman of Breslev always says, don't ever be despair. Don't ever be despair.
That's the motto of this.
Don't ever be despair. If there comes a time of trouble, be happy everywhere. Just be happy everywhere. Just be happy everywhere.
The king once again dressed up as a baker and went off surreptitiously to see how the fixer was getting along.
Foarte important.
Yes, come in. Ah, it's you, my good friends. By all means, come in. Share the good fortune
Thank you
that
very
God
much,
has
my
given
friend.
me.
Thank you very much. Ooh, thank you. Thank you very much, my friend. Can you a little bit take it to your side? Thank you. That's right. So I can whoop-ah, here, whoop-ah.
Share all the good fortune.
Wonderful. Yes, very nice.
Let's drink to the long life of the king.
To the king.
Da, pocălici sperge. Long live the king.
Oh,
He gave him his
thank you, my friend.
He gave him his bed. He was sleeping on the chair at the table.
Tell me, how did you earn the money for the food we ate last night?
Usually I fix things, but the king made a decree that people can't have their things fixed by others. So I found a job cutting wood until I had enough money to buy all my needs.
Until future notice, no one is allowed to hire a worker to cut wood. Is it clear?
Good day, Arnold, sir. Let me chop the wood for you today again.
You didn't hear the king's decree? It's against the law?
The Almighty will provide for all my needs.
Instead of the staples,
A distinguished nobleman like you shouldn't be doing such work. Let me do the work for you.
I searched all over and couldn't find anyone. That's why I'm doing it myself.
We have the honor.
If you do a good job, I'll give you 2 gold coins.
Once again, the king set off to meet the fixer in order to discover the secret of the fixer's great happiness.
I'm happy with my life. 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 God looks up to me. I look up to him. I'm happy with my life.
Tell you, how do you get the money for such a fine meal?
Didn't you hear? The king had issued a decree against cutting wood. So I spent the day doing gardening work.
Mm. 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 Okay. Let it be known, until future notice, no one is allowed to hire a gardener. No one.
The king issued a new decree that it is forbidden to hire a worker to do gardening work.
Excuse me. Excuse me, sir.
Can I help you?
I want to sign up for the National Guard.
Right. Will that be on a monthly, weekly, or on a day-to-day basis?
I request to be paid at the end of each day.
No problem. We need as many soldiers as we can get.
Yeah. Tell me, how did you earn the money for all this food, huh?
I had discovered that the king issued a new decree forbidding doing gardening work. So I went to recruitment office and hired myself on a day-to-day basis.
I'm on day 21 of the 28-chair workout challenge.
To the long life of the king.
To the king.
I've come for my daily wages.
I'm very sorry, but a messenger from the royal palace came this morning with a message from the king not to pay any soldiers today from the king's treasury.
But we made an agreement that you would pay me each day.
I only carry out orders. If you have any complaints, complain to the king.
Who am I to complain to the king?
Don't worry. Tomorrow I'll pay you for both days. Today the treasury is closed.
Thank you. Ribono shel olam.
The fixer entered a pawn shop and pawned the blade of the sword for money, planning to redeem it the following day with the money he earned as a soldier.
this is an expensive meal. How did you get the money for all this?
After my guard duty, when I went to get paid for today, I was told that the king had given decree not to pay the soldiers today. So I exchanged the blade of my sword with a wooden blade, and then pound the sword blade. With the money, I had enough to buy the meal, as usual. Tomorrow, when I get paid, I'll buy the blade back and put it to its handle. No one will be any wiser, and the king will not have lost anything at all.
There is a criminal who must be executed. I want you to command the fixer to come immediately to the castle.
At your Royal Highness' request.
I want you to be here when this bluffer arrives.
Rabbi Nahman of Breslev used to say, "Rule of the world is a very narrow bridge, a very narrow bridge, a very narrow bridge. Rule of the world is a very narrow bridge, a very narrow bridge. But the main thing of all is not to fear at all. But the main thing of all is not to fear at all."
אז בוא נחזיק חזק, שלא ניפול, כי העולם הזה הוא בשצר מאוד. אז בוא נחזיק חזק, שלא ניפול, כי העולם הזה הוא בשצר מאוד. העולם הוא גשר צר, גם אם לא נראה מואר. תמשיך לצעוד ואל תבחן, כי תמיד אתה אחד. אז בוא נחזיק חזק, שלא ניפול, כי העולם הזה הוא גשר צר מאוד. אז בוא נחזיק חזק, שלא ניפול, כי העולם הזה הוא גשר צר מאוד. אז בוא נחזיק חזק, שלא ניפול, כי העולם הזה הוא גשר צר מאוד. אז בוא נחזיק חזק, שלא ניפול, כי העולם הזה הוא גשר צר מאוד.
When nightfall arrived, the fixer was summoned by the king to appear in the executioner's courtyard.
Your Majesty, why did you send for me?
I want you to cut off this prisoner's head with your sword.
What?
I ordered you to cut off this prisoner's head with your sword.
Me? Why me? I've never harmed a person in my life. Maybe he's not guilty.
There is no question that he deserves to be executed.
God the Almighty, Master of all the universe, you know that I have never spilled any blood in my life. If this man is not guilty, let the blade of my sword turn into wood.
It's wood. The sword has turned into wood.
Hey, what about me? Free the prisoner! You are a good man, a true man of belief. Go home. Go home in peace, my friend. Go home.
I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with my life.
I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with my life.
I look up to God. He look after me. I'm happy with my life.
I look after God. He looks after me. I'm happy with my life.
I'm happy with my life.
I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with my life.
I look up to God. He looks after me. I'm happy with my life. I look up to God. He looks after me.
I'm happy with my life.
With this. Okay, so that's the end of that film. We don't have much time. I can either end off with an idea or just maybe I'll end off with an idea. It has to do with Passover. It's also in here. I'll try to send you these things. Where is it? This one. Batamek, the rabbi of Gur, if you saw the page, which I'll send to you with all the Hasidim, Aryeh Leib Alter of Gur is also Menachem Mendel of Kotsk was a rabbi of the rabbi of Gur. So that's the kingdom.
And this Rottenberg name, it's a popular one.
It's relatively.
Yeah, because I know Rottenberg family from Botoshine. I know Mr.
Yeah.
Rottenberg who is.
And there's also a town called Rothenburg.
And it's also I saw the name in Paris.
Yes, an old Ashkenazic name. Yeah.
Yeah, in Paris as a rabbi.
Yeah. So Judah Aryeh Leib Alter was the grandson of the first Hasidic rabbi of Gur Kalvaria. And but his father passed away at a young age, so he was really the second rabbi. That's what happened. His name originally was Rothenberg, but what happened was his grandfather was friendly, as I said, with Rabbi of Kotsk, Menachem Mendel of Kotsk. And when there was an uprising of the peasants against the Polish government, both of them supported the peasants. And because of that, the police were looking for them. Now, these are the early days of family names. So what they just did is change their family name. So instead of Rodenberg, he changed his name to Alter. And that way, they couldn't find him. To this day, the rabbis of Gur are called Alter. So he has a commentary on the Bible, which is very much into Hasidic ideas. It's not a commentary to understand the verses. If anything, very often when we talk about a Hasidic sermon, things can sometimes be taken out of context, and for them that's okay, as long as it's trying to achieve an understanding. So I'll have, I think, just this one. You have their 4 sons in the Passover Haggadah. On Passover, the motif of 4 happens a lot, because you have Moses is told by God in the book of Exodus 4 different words of salvation. First he says, I will take you out of the oppression of Egypt. I will redeem you from the labor. I will I will save you from the labor. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm, and I will take you unto me as a people. That's in Exodus chapter 3, when Moses is at the burning bush, when God says that he wants Moses to go to Egypt because he heard the screams of his people and he wants to save them. So this is called the 4 expressions of redemption. Again, I shall take you out of the oppression of Egypt. I shall save you from the hard labor. I shall redeem you with an outstretched arm, and I shall take you to me as a people. And there's a 5th one, says, and I shall bring you into the land, which is called the cup of Elijah. On the Passover night, we drink 4 cups of wine. Each cup of wine is a toast to one of the 4 expressions of redemption. That's the 4 cups of wine. And the cup of Elijah that we put in the middle is for bringing us into the land. But remember that the Passover Haggadah was written when we didn't have Jerusalem. It was after the destruction of the Second Temple. And there's also 4 sons who ask questions. And there are 4 questions that the son asked the father. It's called the Manishtana. Why is this night different than other nights? Why in this night do we recline? Why in this night do we only eat unleavened bread? And why in this night do we eat bitter herbs? Those are the 4 questions that the son is supposed to ask the father. So the idea of 4 keeps coming back. Now, Sfat Emet is very interested in the question of the wise. We say that there are 4 sons. The 4 sons is the wise son, the rebellious son, the simple son, and the son who does not know how to ask. By the way, the Sfat Emet is the name of his book. Sfat Emet Tikon La'ad is a verse, which means, Sfat Emet means the language of truth. Sfat Emet. So that's the name of his book. Sfat Emet, the language of truth. He says in one place, the reason why you have 4 sons asking 4 questions, says because every person has 4 different types of doubts. That's he tries. Yeah, there's 4 types of doubts that people have about religion. Okay, but I just want to talk about this one. The wise son in the Passover Haggadah, his question is, why are these signs? What are these signs and statutes and laws that God has commanded us? And the answer that we give the wise son is, we say to him, you explain to him the laws of Passover, and you tell him that after you eat the matzah on Passover, the unleavened bread, you're not supposed to eat anything else after that for that night. You have to have the taste of the matzah in your mouth. That's what we tell the wise son. So he's trying to understand this. And his question is like this. The wise son is asking, what are these statutes in Hebrew, hukim? And what are these laws? Now, in rabbinic Hebrew, hukim and Mishpatim represent two types of laws of the Bible. Mishpatim are the what we would call reasonable laws, meaning logical laws that a person understands right away. These are also called sichliot, logical laws. This idea of logical laws, by the way, was coined by not by Jews but by the Kalam. The Kalam was an Islamic theological school in Babylonia between the 8th to 10th century. And they also talked about the laws as being divided into two types. They were also called the Mutakalam. Kalam, from the word kalimat, means the speaker. And so they said that all God's laws can be broken up into logical laws and laws which are not self-evident. So logical laws do not steal, do not murder, do not commit adultery. People can figure that out by themselves. But getting back to Judaism, to eat kosher, to eat matzah and Passover, to not to mix linen and wool in our garments. I bet you don't even know that one in Deuteronomy. And there are a lot of the laws are not self-evident. It's not, you don't wake up in the morning and say, okay, let's eat kosher. If you see it, you might think about it and try to understand what it is, but I'm just saying it's not self-evident, it's not the type of thing. So the self-evident we call mishpati. The non-self-evident we call hukim, the red heifer, and the laws of purity and impurity. Not self-evident. The Kalam called this logical, and this they call the audible laws, meaning the laws that you hear but you don't know what. That's the way they explain it, and that's also taken by Sadia Gaon, who was a contemporary of the Kalam. He quotes that in his book Opinions and Beliefs. But in general, the chukim mishpatim. So chukim are laws which are not self-evident, and mishpatim are self-evident. So because of that, the Rebbe of course says, wait a second, listen to what he's saying. The wise son's question is, what are these chukim? He wants to understand the non-self-evident ones, like matzah, which is the example. That's why the answer given is matzah, because his question is about the non-self-evident. The self-evident, he got it. But what about the non-self-evident? What are the reasons? Okay. So in the question of the Passover Haggadah, the wise son says, what are these signs, chukim and mishpatim, and the two different types, which God has commanded us? So the rabbi, of course, says, how does he ask about the chukim, which are ceremonial laws, which are not self-evident? So he says, the verse says in Psalms 147, who tells his words to Jacob and his chukim and mishpatim to Israel. For the people of Israel know the reasons of the chukim by believing and fulfilling them, even without actually knowing the logical reason. But through doing, one merits to know the reason. In other words, what he's saying is, sometimes there's something which is not self-evident, but through the experience, you might understand it. Because human beings don't only understand through logic, they understand through experience, they understand through intuition. We have different ways of trying to understand things. And this is the idea of the matzah, which is answering to the wise son. Because eating the matzah, which is tasteless bread, and in Hebrew, taste, the word tam also means reason. It's a dublantan. Yes, it's a dublantan. So it's a tasteless bread, meaning like a bread without reason. It means both taste and reason. But it's just the way it is. So, and it's bread which has no reason, it's just the way it is, meaning it's not leavened. It has no form. But by keeping other foods away to keep the taste in one's mouth, by this one connects to the matzah even without taste. So too one connects to the meaning of the chukim intuitively and not through logic. Therefore, we say to him not to eat after foods, after the matzah, after the unleavened bread on the Seder night. So the way he's taking this to a whole different, in other words, what we're telling the wise son, we're just telling him the matzah, that's it. But he's saying, no. The wise son was asking, what about those laws which are not self-evident? And he says, the answer is the matzah, because matzah, it's one of those non-self-evident laws, but you eat it anyhow. So by going through the experience, you're going to feel something, even though it's tasteless, even though it's not necessarily. That's what he's trying to say. I thought that was an interesting. Right? This is very Hasidic. The Hasidim, they're not anti-logic. Nahman, by the way, is. Nahman of Breslov is anti-rational. He believes that philosophy takes you nowhere. It's very interesting.
But may I ask something?
Yeah.
On the other hand, on the Seder night, on the Seder plate, you have bitter roots, you have salty water, you have all the other elements on the plate. They are, I know that, but they're intuitive somehow.
Well, actually, those in particular, because they're not from the Torah, the rabbinic, we actually know the reasons. We put the salt water because it's the tears. We know the charoset because it represents the mortar. The bitter herbs is from the Torah, but the bitter herbs also seems obvious because it represents slavery. The matzah represents redemption. The Maharal of Prague, in the 16th century, says the reason why the unleavened bread, the pain azim, we say in French. You say that also here? Yeah. So the reason why unleavened bread represents freedom is that the yeast, which makes the bread rise, forces it into a form. But when the bread does not rise, it's just what it is. Nobody tries to force it to be what it's not. Rabbi Kook writes in the 20th century, he died in 1935, he said to be free is to be yourself. So this bread is free. And I'll tell you one other idea. If you look in Exodus chapter 12, which talks about leaving Egypt at midnight, which is the original Paschal offering, when they left Egypt at midnight. So they are told to eat the Paschal offering, which was a sheep, together with the unleavened bread and with the bitter herbs. But again, a second time in the book of Exodus, they're also told to eat the unleavened bread because we left Egypt in haste and there was no time for the bread to rise, so they took with them also unleavened bread. So the question is, if the reason for the unleavened bread was because they left Egypt in haste, then why do we also have unleavened bread in Egypt when we were eating the Paschal offering, which was before we left Egypt? So this interpretation I heard from a woman who is a researcher, and she I heard an interview. I can't remember her name, but she's familiar. She's like an expert on Egyptian culture. She said Egypt, ancient Egypt, was the first culture to discover the use of yeast. So all their bread was leavened bread, but the rest of the world did not eat leavened bread because yeast was an Egyptian novelty, innovation. So when the Bible is saying that you have to eat the Paschal offering with unleavened bread, it means if you're leaving Egypt, then you leave their culture behind. And that's the unleavened bread, because the Egyptians were the ones who invented leavened bread. And what's unleavened bread? It's like if you see a Bedouin, they have flour, they have water, they put it on like a round piece of metal and there's a fire underneath. 3 minutes they have bread. It's like, like floppy bread, and you eat that, it's not leavened. Yes, right. For it to be leavened, it takes time. You have to, any bread will leaven even without yeast, but it needs time to rise. But if you just throw it directly on the fire, it's unleavened. And this is the way people ate in antiquity before the Egyptians.
And at the end, to get the leavened bread, it's the first time I hear that, because I'm passionate of bakery. I'm a baker also.
Okay.
it's this process before baking the bread, you have to shape it in form and you have to force it to stay in form. And this is the explanation. I think now the explanation, it's wow, thank you.
Okay. Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
We have to leave Egyptian culture divided.
Yeah.
And leave.
That's the idea. So to be free is to be yourself. That's really what it means. So, okay, so there's a lot of inspiring material in Hasidic writings. The Hasidic world is more interested in the human soul. And remember, when you're living in a times where things are not that great, it's easier to look inward than outward. And that's why the Hasidic movement believed in what Moshe Ida would call individual redemption. If you can't redeem the whole people, you can redeem yourself. And it doesn't mean that they didn't believe in collective or national redemption or universal redemption, but you have to do what you can. And you can always start with yourself. That's it.
May I ask another question
Yeah,
about
sure.
bread?
Yeah.
How about the challah? The challah, how the challah became ritual bread?
Well, first of all, we had bread anyhow.
Yeah,
You know,
even.
remember it says already in also in the Psalms, Yain yesamach levav enosh, which means wine will make a person's heart glad. Velechem levav enosh yisad, and bread will make a person satiated. So bread was always the main part of the meal. It's like in the book of Ruth. Boaz says to Ruth, and you shall take your pita bread and put it into vinegar. Because that's when people ate bread. By the way, in antiquity, people didn't eat a lot of meat because they couldn't afford it. If you had a chicken, you wanted it to lay eggs. If you had a cow, you wanted milk. On the rare occasion, if there's a festival, you would kill the cow for the whole family and the chicken, but mostly people didn't. And the Jewish world too, they would have meat on festivals, but only rich people could eat meat more than that. I mean, I know that people like talking about the ancients as these carnivore people, and that's what they did. But as long as we know history, it was never that. It was the exact opposite. People ate plant life, and on the occasion they had meat because meat was expensive. That's obvious. So I just wanted basically to point that out. So the fact that you have bread and wine on the festivals makes a lot of sense. First of all, wine was always considered an expensive drink, so you're not going to necessarily have it all the time. In Babylonia, the aristocrats always drank wine, never beer. Beer was the poor man's drink under the Romans. But wine was a festive thing. It was at all of our holidays, including the Sabbath. And eating meat was also to show festivity because it was not the usual. The Talmud says if you can't afford meat, then you should have a little bit of herring or sardine, something, to be a little bit, because they understood not everybody can afford it. So, yeah. So we braid the bread different ways just to recognize the holiday. The braided bread represents the showbread in the temple,
Okay.
which had different sides to it. So when you braid a bread, it looks like there are different parts to it. But we have two breads because the manna fell 2 portions on Friday in honor of the Sabbath, so that they wouldn't have to pick it up on the Sabbath. So the manna fell 2 portions on Friday. Because of that, on the Sabbath, we have 2 loaves of bread to remind us of the manna.
On the Sabbath.
On the Sabbath, yeah. So, and on the holidays too, we do the same thing. If they're not on the Sabbath. Rosh Hashanah, we do a round one to show that the year is starting again. It's round. And the round one continues on Sukkot because it's the same one. Okay, dear friends, I don't want to keep you any further. I wish everybody